Yeah. Okay, well this is my quick check to make sure I'm in the right place. But are you in the right place? Is this where you want to be? There might be other big, some interesting events going on around. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much for coming. My name is Crackle. My friends Pop and Andy are over there. Andy's going to be doing the film. Pop is a virtual assistant. And we'll start this session in a minute. Is anyone else due to come? Are we definitely supposed to be starting at 6?
It doesn't, it just says 8 till 6 till 9. It's
8?
quite
Okay, well, let's get started. Should we get started then? Yeah? Yeah, okay. Let's start. And there's definitely nobody here from BCS Elite to chair this. I shall have words with somebody later. Okay, I am here to speak at this BCS Elite event as the guest speaker. Fortunately, I have another role. What is that? Crackle.
Well, it's a microphone.
I know it's a microphone.
That's your USB.
Yeah. That's way.
What's this better? Andy, what's this for? I know what that's for.
I think that's to plug itself into the USB.
It's a decoration.
This is the audio recorder. Technology. Anyway, let's put that in there. Thankfully, with BrexIT, there'll be some new regulations to stop us taking out. But yes, so this is a BCS Elite event. People at the back, even with large glasses on, definitely won't be able to see half of this. So if you'd like to relocate to the you're welcome. It's a good place to have a sleep. And as far as I'm concerned, I am speaking on behalf of myself, but I can't give you information about BCS Elite related to future events and things because I don't know. I do have an indication that there's a BCS Elite event on the 23rd of April. 23rd of April? Yeah? Okay, which should be well worth coming to, and they might even have a chairman there, I'm not sure. But that's a treat to look forward to. Meanwhile, let's get going with this. Who is a member of BCS Elite? Crackle. Great, okay, so that's half a dozen of us out of the 8 people here, so that's more than 8 people here, and you're most welcome. And I'm looking for, I'll start this off and then you just take over, yeah? I'll go and have some drinks and come back and I'll finish up. Does that sound okay? That's what I mean by an interactive session. Yeah? If not, then you'll force me to keep talking throughout and it's going to be tough. But never mind. What I have is a 79-slide presentation. And I'm looking for people who really have nowhere to go and need to spend the night here. Is there anybody like that? Bother. Okay. Okay, I'll tell you what. I'll give you the shorter version, which is only 29 slides and should last about, well, I can present it in half an hour, but it really depends how much you contribute. That's it, contribute. Because it's an interactive presentation. And my telephone is just interacting with me as well. How embarrassing. So let me just flick that little switch there. If you want to say things, you're most welcome, and I do in fact expect you to. I've actually given this 4 times before in different versions, which is why I put up the wrong version earlier. But as far as this session is concerned, it's one I intend to repeat. You'll find out why in a few minutes. Now, you're members of Elite, but I suppose I ought to ask you a subsidiary question. Who is a BCS member? Oh, great. Everybody is. Wonderful. In that case, we're all part of the same gang, and I'm going to rope you in big time. What is he talking about? Well, I'm supposed to be talking about Brexit. I haven't really mentioned anything about Brexit yet. So that's just about me. And as you can see, I've slimmed down considerably since then. But let me lead you in another direction. Okay. Here we are. This is what I am going to talk about? No, it's not. This is not the agenda, is it? There are a whole load of questions, so the interaction starts here. Right, okay, can you read it at the back? Olivia, what does the third line down say?
Sorry?
No, wrong.
I can read it very well.
Excellent. Okay, the third line is a crucial one. Right, well, you can see the questions. Why are we here? You know, why are you interested in being here on a lovely sunny afternoon? And presumably you do all have homes to go to, so why are you here? Would somebody like to give me an answer? Lady here, I have to know why you're here, so tell me why you're here.
Well, I got recently a certificate, CISA certificate, and they want me to have 120 hours of professional continuous education, which,
right.
and I thought that 3 hours makes 3 points. So that's why I'm here.
Great, okay. Great news for you. Everyone else, I'm going to be talking for about an hour. For you, I'm going to leave you here. I'm going to count to 120 hours, and then my telephone is going to ring and wake you up, and you can go, and I'll certify you've been here for 120 hours. How's that?
Wonderful. I can do that actually for that amount of hours.
Great. Why are we here? Jim, why are you here?
I just walked past the door was open so I came in.
Same thing happened to me, so I understand. Well, next question. What does Brexit mean for us? What's likely to be the implication for you, Terry? See, I'm picking on people I know.
That's fair enough, darling. What does Brexit mean for me? It means opportunity and confusion.
Opportunity and confusion.
It's a yin-yang situation.
Yin-yang. Wow. This could be a really interesting talk. Okay, as we delve into Chinese philosophy. Anyone else? What does Brexit mean for you, sir?
For me,
Yeah.
absolutely nothing at the moment. Probably redundancy in about 2 years' time.
Redundancy in 2 years' time. That's interesting. Okay, so that takes us to point 3. So what is the meaning? What is the meaning of what is the meaning of life? And various other questions. Well, I'll start giving you some answers from my view. The meaning of life is that we have something that interests us, that fulfills us, and quite often that feeds us as well. And in some instances enables us to sleep well at night. And I'm going to ask you some other questions now, which are very BCS related. You'll see the reason for these questions as we go through, I hope. What is the BCS good for? Now, come on, this has always sparked a healthy discussion. What is the BCS good for? So, what's the BCS good for? You're a BCS member, right?
For IT education as well as
Right, okay. IT and education are the first two bits of that FHR. Somebody else, what's BCS good for? So, you.
Well, I think we're supposed to be we should help the government lead in technology.
Help government lead in
And not just government, sorry, everyone. Everyone who uses IT, with their central body, we advise
Right.
the best practice.
Okay. Anyone argue with that? Andy.
Making IT good for society.
Right. Hey, that's a good slogan. Let's pass that on and see if the BCS would adopt it. Oh no, look at... We're doing a thought transfer to question E here. How can we help BCS make IT good for society? That's the question. And I'm going to contend that we can encourage BCS to help make IT good for society in certain areas. And Brexit is the topic I picked on for tonight. So let's carry on, because the other things I'm going to pick on, I'm afraid, are you. How can you help? How can we help to make this happen? That's the question. Any ideas? No? Okay? Let's cock up some CPEs. Right, so there are, of course, a number of aspects to Brexit, but let's focus on IT and compliance programs, because there have been lots, haven't there? Now, I'm old enough to remember these, and certain others as well. Who else? Who remembers Y2K? You don't remember
Yes, I do.
You were running around in
I was
shorts.
patching servers on New Year's Eve.
Oh my God, patching servers on New Year's Eve. What were you doing? You were climbing mountains at all.
No. Well, Y2K, I was on the phone to colleagues around the world, checking whether or not the rollouts would work.
Great. He was checking out his international phone system. Good. So what were you doing? Y2K, why? You're too
Martin, let my team do it.
Good man, good answer. Okay, fine. So, the bottom line of this is there are various things that have happened and are going on now. But we're used to change, aren't we? We're supposed to be change agents. We're supposed to be making it happen. So what's the big deal with a change program, which in a sense is what Brexit is going to be for us? Well, there are parallels we can draw with other things, and the one I'm going to select here is number 2, the Cyber Essentials Scheme. Has anyone actually done any work on the Cyber Essentials Scheme? No? ISO 27001, and making sure that SMEs are ready for the cyber challenges of today and tomorrow? No? Okay, is anyone working on GDPR? Ah, excellent. Right, good. Are you actively working on GDPR? Good. As I don't know about BCS events, I'll tell you about some of mine relating to GDPR that are going to come up later. Yeah? So please remind me at the end. So GDPR, big program, similar to Brexit? Do you know? More or less. Okay.
Full of uncertainty.
Sorry?
Full of uncertainty.
Full of uncertainty, yeah. Okay, fine. Hi. Are you a BCS member?
Yeah.
Ah, great, good. Fine. We're all BCS members together. We're going to help BCS. Okay, so we're used to changes. Cyber essentials. Let's have a look at that, because I agree there are similarities between different compliance programs. But, for example, in my view, GDPR focuses on data, information, personal information. But for my argument's sake, Brexit focuses on things, and people are probably the most important things it focuses on. Things, where they come from, where they go to, what the implication might be when we leave the European Union. So that's the thing. Let's carry on. Right, well, here's a whole load of stuff that you don't really want to read, but I selected the Cyber Essentials Scheme as an example because of the bits that I've highlighted there. I'll read it. The government will, this was in May 2014, with the scheme about to start in June 2014. The government will launch a guidance and certification scheme in June to help UK businesses get the basics of cybersecurity right. Good. The scheme includes a Cyber Essentials questionnaire, which you fill in, tick, 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 send off, and all is well, or maybe not. The government has worked with numerous bodies to develop Cyber Essentials, a set of basic technical controls for organizations to use. And this full scheme enables organizations to gain one of 2 new Cyber Essentials badges. And it's backed by lots of great bodies, and there are insurance organizations offering incentives for business. And the government did that too, because they said, hey, you want to apply for our big government contract. Number 1, we're going to check out that you're Cyber Essentials certified. If not, don't bother. Yeah? So there's a very solid incentive there. Now, that is actually has actually been adopted by tens of thousands of organizations. especially SMEs, because that was the intention, wasn't it? To get everybody's cyber awareness above a certain level. Unfortunately, it looks like it also included large numbers of people who are very good at hacking into computer systems and so on, who have made use of that knowledge. But the point is, tens of thousands, I heard a figure of 40,000 organizations are using, I don't know if that's true, which is very impressive. It's also pathetic, because how many organizations are there in the UK? 500,000? Something like that? But never mind. It's a very, very good start. And that is something where, if I knew there are a number of organizations relating to cybersecurity, and one of them said, Cyber Essentials, we've done it, we've got the tick, and so on, I think I'd probably think, I'll check them out first. Wouldn't you? So that's the sort of thinking I've got here. There's a whole row of seats in the front here, if you'd like to not particularly that. Okay, so that's Cyber Essentials, and there's a tick, and that too is a key thing for tonight. Right, let's get back to the future. The future, oh my God, what's going to come in the future? Well, we'll find out. We have no option. So we will definitely find out what happens as we go into the brave new world. And this is PwC's little representation of things which are important to Brexit. One of them is the UK economy, and another one is tax regulations and things like this. So let's not go on too much about that. Check it out on PwC website if you want. PwC's approach to Brexit. I would rather go for two of my main heroes, these two here. And I'm really pleased because the Prime Minister many times has told me, in my days of uncertainty, she's informed me exactly what Brexit means. Brexit means Brexit, as you know. She said that many times, so I was very reassured by that. I was a bit worried by Mark Carney, because in his role as the Governor of the Bank of England, he said it's preferable that firms know as much as possible about the desired endpoint, and as early as possible about the potential path to that endpoint, which really shook my confidence in Theresa May and the government, because they'd assured me that Brexit means Brexit, so that's it, full stop. Apparently it's not full stop, and there's actually quite a lot to find out. And there's quite a lot that all of us as individuals, as well as IT people, need to do about it. So, I'm a little bit worried as well, rather like Mark Carney. I think of Brexit in the same way as I think of compliance programs and things like this. And that essentially is what I'm going to tell you about. I'm going to tell you about a readiness program for Brexit. Brexit means risks, and it also means opportunity. And in terms of IT, it means that there are many things that we need to look at and understand, and then we need to decide how we go forward. So, if we do take the right decisions, there will be many opportunities, because there will be competitive advantage for firms that are demonstrably ready for Brexit. Yeah? Do you go with that? Along the analogy of what I told you about the cyber readiness program? I think it's going to be something like that. Right, okay. Now, I don't know of anybody else who's got a Brexit readiness program related to IT at this point. Do you? Yeah? Okay. And, you know, I keep hearing, well, it's not up to me, it's up to the government. They need to decide what to do. Brexit means Brexit, but what does Brexit mean, etc. And I thought, no, this isn't right. I know that in the BCS, we have a vested interest in not being at the leading edge of technology. We prefer to be just behind, because then we can say, you upstarts who went and fell over your feet rushing along, that was wrong. What you need is a measured approach. But I think we really ought to plant a flag and do something about Brexit as being the authoritative body in IT in the UK. There are only $75,000 in total. I think it's gone down to 71,000 now, which is a mere drop in the ocean in comparison with all the millions of IT-related people in the UK, but BCS is a very significant body. Reaches up to government levels and reaches to education, health services, and numerous parts of our business world. So, BCS, I think, ought to do something. The environment that we're operating in is a business environment. I've chosen a business environment for this example, although it also applies to charitable, not-for-profit, and so on environments. In a business environment, there are lots of different functions and roles. Also, there are certain things which typically an organization has, unless it's a one-man band. I have a one-man band. My one-man band is called CRISC. There's one of me. So I perform all of these functions. Governance, that's a tough one, making sure your people in the organization are going the right way. Because I keep on having to check up on myself. Asset and service management, what have I got, and where do I get it from, and what am I going to do with it? Risk management. I took a big risk coming here today. So many streets I had to cross, but I thought of you and I thought, I'll do it. So I came. So risk management is another fundamental, and project management. I planned my time to get here by 6:30. Happened to have got it completely wrong. Event started at 6, but never mind. That's project management. So even small organizations are involved with these things. But of course, I'm teasing you because these are fundamentals of most organizations. And I think all of those facets are important in terms of being ready for Brexit. So let's see what we mean by that a little bit more. We're going to examine some of these in a little bit more detail during this session. But essentially, what I'm talking about here is a way of making sure your organization is ready for the IT world of change that's coming up. And if you're not, then, well, you might not be around for much longer. Your organization might not be around for much longer. So what I'm going to tell you is about Brexit, but it could well be about GDPR. It could well be about your organization's survival over the next 5 years. Because do you know where you want your organization and yourself to be in 1 year's time? Who does? This is very worrying. Nobody. Okay, one person. Thank goodness for that. Who would like to think their organization, assuming you don't work for the one-man band, has some kind of plan for the next 1 year, 3 years, 5 years? Or do you really not care about the job? Okay. Larger numbers of people. That's good. Because this is about how to survive in business as well. Let's go through it in a little bit more detail. There are a series of numbers here, and you probably know about my sense of humor by now. I heard variously that the government was launching a 10-point plan or a 12-point plan relating to Brexit. So I thought, right, I'm going to develop a methodology, a process that has 11 points, but don't leave it till the 11th hour. Okay, so this is my 11-point plan for how to prepare for Brexit. Number 1 is a governance point. Review the environment you're in. And I'll tell you more about that in a minute. Number 2 is understand your organization's business objectives, and that's a governance point as well. Number 3 is confirm who is responsible for what in your organization. I don't have a problem with that, but then there's only me. But in any larger organization, it's rather more of an issue. And in ones that I worked in, like PwC and KPMG and so on, it's a significant issue. Those are all what I've termed governance points. Then we go into this, which is asset and service management. Select which tools, which software, which other physical tools you're going to use, number 4. And number 5, categorize the assets and processes. What sort of assets are we talking about? What could be important for Brexit? Data? Okay. What else could be important for Brexit?
resources in terms of food, minerals.
Food, minerals,
Yes, the supply of electricity.
fuel,
Planes flying and landing. I mean,
planes,
everyday things.
Everyday things. Okay. Anybody else? What's important for Brexit?
Human capital.
Human capital.
Human
Do you need
resources.
people?
Yeah.
Absolutely right. Without your people, unless you're running an automated car manufacture plant, and it's all populated by robots, your people are by far your key asset. And what do you think would happen if you get everything else right? And we in IT are good at doing this, aren't we? And Jim at the back and I sort of majored on this for decades. We're really good at getting the IT right and completely forgetting that, oh, wait a minute, half of these people may not be here after 1 year or 2 years. Yeah? That might not be because we want to get rid of them, certainly not, or we want them to go. It might be because they have got plans of their own, and they do their own risk management as well. So, in terms of asset and service management, we will look a little bit more at categorizing your assets and processes and deciding which ones are important. All the things you said are important, but I would put it to you that by far the most important are your people. Then, let's go to the risk management side of it. And this is classic risk management, really. I put number 6, list the relevant service level agreements, key performance indicators, suppliers and customers for your organization. I know that's a bit of a squeeze, but I could have spread that across 2 or 3 activities, but list the relevant things for your business that you need to carry forward. Number 7, identify the risks to them. Business risks and also IT risks. Number 8, assess the risks, the key risk indicators, and the controls you've got in place to mitigate those risks. And then number 9 is plan actions to make sure your ship is ship-shape, or your ship is ship-shaped, or your shop is shop-shaped, or your org is org-shaped, or whatever it is. Make sure you're addressing the risks. Then I've put these as project management because project management actually runs throughout this. In fact, a lot of these run throughout them, don't they? But project management, apply the actions that you planned to do, and then number 11, monitor and communicate. Tell people about it. So you can see everything is relating to everything else as well. And then, great, we've done it. And keep doing it again, and again, and again, and again. Because by that time, you should have an organization which is functioning pretty well on its own. And you just need to keep it going. Was that a hand at the back? No hand at the back, okay. Great, let's move on. If you want to interrupt, feel free. Right, so here's the process that I'm going to suggest. Number 1, register. So, register with GSL Risk, my company, and I'll put your name down, and I say, right, you're registered. Great. B is guidance. Take guidance from my company, GSL Risk, that's me, and I'll guide you. And I'll come back and advise you and charge you lots of consultancy fees and that. When you need more guidance. Right. Number C is do it. This is actually you, not me. Yeah. You do it in your organization. Do the activities that we're going to look at. There's 11 activities. And keep on doing it. It's an ongoing process. And just let me know occasionally. D, status and evidence. Right. You monitor your status, tell me about it, you collect some evidence about it, and let me know when you've done it. See, because there's only one of them, so, slightly limited in that score. Right. E, tick. you tick yourself if you like, or I can send you over an electronic tick to show that you've done it. Now, that's pretty good, isn't it? That's, obviously going to carry a lot of weight, and then use it, publicize, tell people that you've got the DSL risk tick to show you're on the road to Brexit. Do you like the plan? Yeah? Do you want to sign up to that?
Not a lot.
Not a lot. Well, I need a lot. I need thousands of organizations to sign up. So what's the problem?
Well, it isn't a plan, is it?
Well, it sounds like a pretty good
It's
plan
not
to
a plan to
me.
get anywhere.
To get anywhere, but I won't have time to go anywhere.
You won't
Let's
be
get
in
it straight. I'll be
Brexit.
sitting
You'll
here.
be sitting on an island somewhere with all those registration fees,
Yes,
monitoring the
yes. I just want to see the money coming in. And then
Do you need a partner in this business?
I need a partner.
Yeah.
I could do with quite a lot of partners, actually. In fact, I wish I knew an organization that might be interested in this sort of activity. Can you think of any? No? Maybe I'll have to go to the government and ask them to help, or seek some certification body. I think there was some listed on the cyber security side. But can you think of any others? Somebody who might have the weight and a lot of members, or a lot of staff, or the ability to administer this, and the weight to carry it through. Any ideas?
Inland revenue.
Inland
Next
revenue.
one.
That sounds good.
They can come in your house and sort out anything for you.
I'm sure they'll be very interested in my activities.
It makes it fun.
DSL risk, yes. Yeah. Well, this is, I hope you've all got in mind what I've got in mind, which is, this is a fine idea for one person to have, but it's the sort of idea that would be great if an organization, there was a certification body, there was a professional organization that was renowned in the land, in BrexIT, Britain, for example, had the staff to do it, and the contacts upwards to government and down throughout the organizations in the land to be able to do this. And this is the mission, if you like, that I'm on. And the bizarre thing is, there's still only one of me. We're all BCS members, so I'll share with you that BCS at the most senior levels are very interested in this. They know what I'm doing, and I've now given this talk 4 times, and I've got to give it another 3 times, and I've been keeping them informed. So they're obviously interested, and I think they're essentially gauging the degree of interest. So what I'm going to ask you for is to say at the end of this what your views are, and see what you think of the little thing that I've knocked together. So, having shared that with you, let's carry on. And now you'll know that I put DSL risk on that because I can't put BCS, because they haven't adopted it. But I've been talking with numbers of people about this so far. So,
I can wait to the end if you like, but can I react to this now, because it's in my head? So one of your earlier slides alluded to the role of the society, or the institute we're doing it now. I do remember, some of you might remember, year 2000, and before that, decimalisation of the currency. February 1971.
My word, 1971.
There was Big Bang in the city. There is, I think, space in the market and even a need in the market for an authoritative guide on what all this stuff means, much like year 2000, where there was a lot of hype, overhype, but nevertheless there was a real problem. And the BCS did produce a very useful little booklet in question and answer form, and there were 2 or 3 variants of this. I think there is scope for at least item B on your list.
I agree. I was a COO at the time that talked to, what was it,
99.
93.
98, 99.
No, 93. When the European currency came in.
The euros. That was an old, yes.
And we ended up with interest out and all that other stuff, some of which was going to have to be.
No, the euro was
Okay, so it was interest out came in. That's right, you're right, it was. So it was both things. So, and actually, one of the reasons I rocked up today was well, I didn't really rock up, did I? I turned up today. I had a biscuit and coffee.
You came
You
back,
know what I mean? I'm wearing jeans, so and it was because having been through that, actually in about 9 countries, in fact, in Europe, there is a need for a guide.
Okay.
It's a really good idea, and
I like your BrexIT gimmick as well.
Thank you. Okay, good, thank you. So,
It's a fine idea, but leaving public bodies aside, from a commercial standpoint, until Mr. Carney's vision has been realised and we know what the path is and what's involved, I don't think you've got anything commercially to hang your hat on, because to go to an organisation and say, I can do this for you, they'll say, but to what end? Where are the threats? And how can I make some commercial benefit out of what you're offering to me? So I think until that pathway's there, you don't really have something to go and offer to fix, because we don't know what the problem really is at the moment.
I think we can. I do. I think you can do a sort of agile kind of approach where the first sort of iteration you're taking a kind of sketchy view of what the areas. Well, it's what's on your slide actually. What are the areas of potential impact? Because I've just named several of them already, and there will have to be changes in those areas. You can see risk around all sorts of things.
Yeah.
You might want to spend lots of money on it yet.
No.
But as you move, but the trouble is, if you leave all the thinking till you know, and you know it's going to get decided at the 11th hour, slightly inaccurate, and you also know if you don't do the thinking early, you won't get the chance to influence and get people to write the right thing in the legislation in the end, which is what, it's a personal view.
okay,
It may not represent my organisation.
So don't wait till the 11th hour. I'll try not to keep you till then, but no promises. And please do keep interacting. Okay, interesting thoughts. Let's carry on. Right, here's the basis of this methodology. This is a big commercial secret. I'm really giving you a lot here because this is it. It's basically use this for everything. Number A, I call it people, the job functions which are responsible for this activity, and there are 11 activities. Next, information and processes, the business and IT data and processes relevant to this activity. All of this is in your organization, or if we're all going as a team, in that organization we're going to check out. C, tools, meaning software and other tools which could be used for this activity. D, deliverables resulting from this activity. E, references to related information, for guidance and so on. And examples, sample screens. And in a nutshell, that's my methodology. So take that and go forth and multiply this by 11 at least, and we'll sort it. Let me tell you more. The activities I'm referring to, and there are 4 slides to cover the 11 activities. Can you read this okay from the back?
Yes.
Yes. Good. Okay. Fine. Number 1, review the environment. All of this relates to your organization. So review the environment you're in and what's important for you. So I put the subheading, consider the big picture. Essentially, what I want to, what I suggest your organization does is collect information about this topic and your organization. Most organizations have this in their marketing, publicity, advertising departments, and so on. The environment your organization is operating in. Number 2 is understand your business objectives. What are our business targets is the subheading there. And the deliverables, highlighting the aspects that could relate to BrexIT, are lists of business objectives and IT objectives to support the business objectives. Now, in terms of this, let's have a flip of fantasy. You're in the business of making computer keyboards for that European manufacturer. Okay, it's for Aerospatiale in France, and they love your keyboards because of the shape, sort of kind of ergonomic, and they like it. Anyway, they're French, so they're bound to. And that's your market, and you've been doing really well. You've cornered the market with Aerospatiale and your keyboards. But what are you going to do when we leave the EU and Aerospatiale says, it's great for us, but the UK is slapping huge import duties or taxes on transporting your keyboards and so on. And you think, my word, there are only 10 of us, I'm not sure this is worth it. Why don't you look at what the alternatives are? And let's really have a flight of fancy and say, right, what am I trying to achieve here? Is my main thing making keyboards for Aerospatiale, and I really love that, and that's what I want to do? Or is it, for example, making a 10% profit year on year on what I get from this wonderful product I've got? Okay, if it's 10%, why not look at other markets and possibilities? Why not go into making umbrellas? Well, in the UK, there must be some great umbrella manufacturers around. But again, just flip your mind a little bit. Why not go into the market of making umbrellas for Saudi Arabia? Yeah? Sounds like a good idea? It doesn't rain a lot, but they do have rather bright sunshine. So I'm talking about sun umbrellas. Why not go into that market? Because the Saudis really love ones with the Union Jack, I think, and they're prepared to pay lots of money. Your profitability, especially for a 2-year spell, let's say, could really increase. Why not think about that? Why not think of alternatives like that? Or why not go into partnership with a company in the Welsh Hills that is making something that could be tremendously useful here in London? Maybe Protect City or something like that. Why not look at other alternatives to your keyboards and Aerospatiale? So what I'm suggesting is understand your business objectives, but not what you make, but what your basic reason for being is. As I say, is it to make profit, or is it because you love your customers and suppliers, and that's it, and so on. So the deliverables that come from that are lists of business objectives and the IT to support the business objectives. Okay, number 3, confirm the responsibilities. Who in your organization is responsible for the things that could relate to Brexit? And here, let me just not ask the question, but say to you, I would suggest by far the most important thing that you need to think about is people. And in that sense, GDPR, the compliance program, sure, but people are likely to be the one that you need to focus on. My wife is German, and the day that Brexit was announced, I was really shocked. I really was shocked, because she's lived in the UK for 35 years, and I can vouch for that. And she said to me, well, if they don't want me, I want to go. Let's go and check out apartment prices in Frankfurt. And as it happened, we did, because I was really worried. And anyway, we've got friends in Frankfurt, so it was nice. We went there and found that apartment prices in central Frankfurt have increased, shot up by about 25% in some cases. And there are lots of empty apartments, top spec apartments in the centre of Frankfurt. Guess why? Because property companies and landlords are prepared to speculate on what's going to happen when they get, they hope, floods of people heading out of the city of London and wanting to go to Frankfurt. We didn't check out Paris, might have been the same, or Amsterdam, could be the same. Paris, we know La Défense, that business area in Paris has been sending people over here, you know, instead of waiting for them to go over there. We didn't check out other places either, you know, Stockholm and, you know, etc. Brussels is a hot favorite. They are looking to scoop up people from the UK after Brexit. Will it happen? Well, who knows? Who knows? I mean, what is Brexit? We don't know, do we? But those people who are typically highly paid, highly in-demand people are making their own decisions and covering their bases. Yeah? They might be in your organization. Do you want your organization to continue to have them? In that case, you need to start making noises to them now to reassure them and to tell them that you have a lot of Polish workers maybe in your organization. To say that, don't worry, we're actually checking out the possibility of setting up an office in Warsaw or something like that. So you could continue to work for us. You just wouldn't be located in London or something like that. Start thinking about those things, because what sort of lead time do you think you need in terms of people? Brexit comes in 2 years' time. How many of your people, your key people, do you think you'll still have in 2 years' time if you don't say anything to them? Yeah? Okay, so confirm responsibilities, and especially the ones that matter to your organization and its business objectives, the Brexit-related roles, responsibilities, and so on. And get a chart together. That's the deliverable from this activity. Activity 4, select the Brexit tools. What can you use for asset management, forecasting? What if? You know, what if import duties increased? What if delivery times doubled, etc., etc. Start putting some of that thought into place, and especially get your list of assets together. And the deliverable from that is lists of the existing tools and software and other artifacts already available in our organization, and a list of further tools that you might require. It might even be as simple as a piece of paper, and you do a SWOT analysis, you know, the weaknesses, the opportunities, the threats, all that sort of stuff. But do something to start thinking about the future of your organization. We can call it Brexit if you like, but should I call it IT strategy instead? Okay, then number 5, categorize your assets and processes. What could be impacted by Brexit and to what extent? So here it's a list of relevant processes and asset registers or lists showing Brexit categories. For example, which is the country of origin or the country of supply for this thing? Which is the country of sale? What's the cost and what's the current value? What's the future value? What's the importance to our organization of this thing? Now, I have something which is extremely valuable to me. It's this thing here. Do you know what it is? It looks like a pencil, and it's a yellow and black pencil, which indicates that it is, do you know? It's a Steckler, made in, oh, you can tell me, that's very old. It was made in Germany, it says. Good. Well, I like these. I like these that well, you can see I get through them rather quickly. In fact, I've got a box of them in my drawer, and I'd like to keep on using them, but I'm a bit worried about Brexit. After Brexit, will I be able to continue getting these? I don't know. Now I know that I'm supposed to do something. What do you think I could do about making sure that I get a guaranteed supply of these for the next 5 years?
You speak to people in Germany.
Speak to people in Germany. Number 1, learn German. Number 2, speak to people in German. It's okay, Terry knows I speak German already, so. Okay, what can I do to guarantee a supply of these?
Stockpile. Yep.
Stockpiling.
Find an alternative.
Stockpiling. Small office. There's only yes. Find an alternative. Okay.
Start making them in the UK.
start making them in the UK.
Cut the existing ones in half.
Cut the existing ones in half.
Estimate your usage rate. Estimate your usage rate so they'll give you some target.
Estimate the usage. Check out also things like the license terms. The terms. How long they're supposed to last before the self-combust order. These are all valid. These are all very valid because you know that. Okay, I'll come clean. It's not really Stettler pencils I'm talking about. It's Olivetti systems. It's Siemens equipment. It's things from Canon in France. It's things relating to other parts of the EU. And that doesn't even mention my BMW or Audi car. Because as you know, where does that come from? It's actually a complex question when you're talking about car manufacturing. Because components get shifted across frontiers to be put into assemblies. The assemblies get shifted to other countries in order to go through the next step of the manufacturing process. And then finally they're assembled here in the UK. So they've moved across frontiers about 10 times already, haven't they, by the time you get your car. So a car is an extreme example, but we're in IT. In terms of computing, what I'm saying, of course, is, hey, what are you going to do over the next 5 years if a number of factors go up? Get hold of those forecasting tools, do some predictions, see if it still makes sense for your business. Yeah? And irrespective of Brexit, I'm hoping you do this already. Although I've got a funny feeling from my last 2 or 3 months of asking people that SMEs in particular are woefully unprepared. Because a lot of Brexit work is going on already, of course, in the big consultancies, like because of my background, I know it's going on in PwC and KPMG and so on, and they're making money from it. But they hope to make a whole lot more as people start to panic. The big companies, FTSE 100 companies, large numbers of them are working on it, which might mean they've just got one person who's thinking about it, or it might mean they've got a whole team of people. Typically in the city, in banks and financial institutions, they're on it. They're on the case, and they're looking at where their business is being done. And you've heard about HSBC keeps saying, well, we're going to move our people offshore and all the rest of that thing. Well, they're not just saying we're going to move our people offshore, they're checking it all out, of course, and they're checking out the what-if scenarios. But there are thousands and thousands of SMEs below the FTSE 100, probably below the FTSE 250, who are totally, hey, I'll wait till the government decides what to do. Now, what do you think might happen if they continue to do nothing? Then we get to a situation where these Stettler pencils, which come in every 2 days on a ferry from Germany to the UK, suddenly find that there isn't a queue of 10 lorries, there's a queue of 350 lorries, all doing the same thing. And they're really, really slowed down because of all the paperwork and the customs procedures they now have to go through, and the import taxes and all that stuff that they have to prepare. Suddenly, the lead time for this is going to go up to one week or more, and that might be unacceptable for them. Yeah? So those are the sort of things that are starting to be worked on in some firms, and we can actually help others to start thinking about these things now. And by now, okay, I'm not talking about DSL, we in the BCS. Okay, so let's carry on. Number 7, identify the risks. What could impact our business progressing in the way we want it to? And here, the deliverables are lists of IT risks, which relate to the business risks. And we need to show their relative business importance and impact for our business. And the guidance that I've prepared guidance for all of these, and the guidance there is the types of business risk and the types of IT risk related to them and all the rest of that stuff. Classic risk management, we could say. Okay, assess risks, the controls to mitigate them, and the key risk indicators. If my profit level drops below X, then I'm going to worry. If this control fails more than 3 times a week, I'm going to worry. All of these sort of things. Yeah? And again, I can guide people on this, but there's only one of them. Yeah. Okay, so what comes out of this? Updated lists, or for people who are risk managers, risk control matrices, showing the BrexIT-related business and IT risks, their importance to the organisation, the controls to watch what's happening to them and try and head it in the right direction. The assessment tests that you've done to check them, and the key risk indicators and so on. So all of those things. And by the way, 2 perfectly acceptable ways of mitigating risk are: 1, do nothing, if that's what you want to do. Yeah. And another one is take insurance. Try and insure against it. Yeah? And as you know, now there is a new little industry that we have spawned, which is about cyber security. There are now insurance companies who are starting to offer cyber insurance. Now, I think, how on earth can they do that when we have no idea what's going to happen? But I guess the premiums are high. But I know what I would do in that situation. I'd say, okay, I'm going to give you a tick list of things, and I'm going to ask you to check if you're doing these things or not. I'm going to want evidence, and providing you've done all those things, then I'll insure you. Actually, I'm a car insurer, but I've gone into this business as well, because I can see the similarities between car insurance and cyber insurance. And I'm going to charge you lots for the cyber insurance. And they're starting to make money. So, assess your risks and decide what you're going to do about them. Number 9, plan actions. How can we make it happen to protect our business and our business objectives? So from that come our action plans for testing and program and project plans for the tests and measurements, because you're going to need people within the organisation to do all this testing, report the results and so on. Number 10, apply the actions, in other words, do it. Deliverables are test results and evidence of implementation of the planned actions. Now this is quite important, this evidence, because that's how you can assure other people that you're doing something. And that is what's going to bring more customers your way, or more sales and so on. Also, whilst we've whooshed through all this, we've skipped over something else that is happening increasingly these days: use of the cloud. If you're getting your stuff via a cloud supplier, or a cloud supplier storing your data, where is it? Which cloud? How fast is the cloud moving? In which direction? Over which countries? Where will it be when you need it? Oh, and by the way, your backups, your data, you might be storing those on the cloud, or you might have that nice man in the van taking it away to the Iron Mountain, which is a backup and recovery company. But where are they taking it to? Is it going across frontiers? Will you have to pay taxes, duties, etc. for that to continue to happen? Is the cost going to double, etc.? Things to think about. Deals to be done. Lawyers to be hired. Now, whilst you're winning and there's 2 years to go, or do you want to leave it till, the government has said what has to happen until we actually go to leave, and there are 300 or is it 30,000 companies ahead of you in the queue? Okay, so whatever you're doing, if it's good, monitor and communicate it. So if, for example, you could get a tip from this from somewhere, then tell people. Tell people that you're on the case. Tell people that you're looking out for these things for your organization. And because they do business with your organization, you're helping to look after them too. Yeah? So from this, deliverables are BrexIT IT reports to the board in your company, and the board agenda minutes, which show what happens as a result of that. And also newsletters, emails, press releases, etc. And maybe a little tip at the bottom of your email, which says, we are a Brexit-ready company, or we're heading towards Brexit, is more likely, because how do you know if you're Brexit-ready when you don't know exactly what it's going to be like? Yeah? And then recycle, keep doing it. So there we go. We're almost at the end now. That's what I'm suggesting. Any thoughts before we continue with the final few slides? Okay, let's continue. Right, I'm going to show you one example, but don't worry about reading through this too much. This one is about that last one, monitor and communicate. Number 11, monitor and communicate. So here's a bit of the detail behind it. Here's some of the guidance. What do you have to do? Well, you need to understand our objectives and the risk appetite of your organization. I'm in a large pharmaceutical company. Typically, my organization is going to be very risk averse, especially after all the horrible publicity that there's been about other firms. An even better example is the oil and gas industry. I'm going to be especially careful about what gets out to the media and things because of what happened to Exxon Valdez and the Gulf of Mexico and all those other places. So the risk appetite of my company is going to be very risk averse. It's going to be very conservative, very low risk. Or we're running a little startup company in Shoreditch. Those organizations typically are highly risk ready. No problem in terms of risk. Take the risk, try this, launch it doesn't work, no problem, try again. Yeah? So those are two extremes of this. So you need to understand your risk appetite and so on. Monitor the relevant Brexit news and the business intelligence and analysis and all those other things. So that's to do with monitoring and communicating. And tell people, if you've got good news stories, tell your internal stakeholders, but more likely tell everybody externally as well. Report the real situation to your senior management and update your information as you go. Okay, so what might come out of that? Well, you've got the template, so you fill in who's going to do what and what your deliverables are and all that sort of stuff. And you put it in a central database or somewhere on your organization. Typically, we put them on our network. And it's almost like an audit readiness thing. You have your information. Where is it? Well, you need that information if you're going to continue to operate as a business. So just try and make sure that the locations are fairly easy to understand and find and so on at the time when you need it. So do all of those, put the deliverables there, and that'll make it much easier to show people and tell them that you've got Brexit-related reports, newsletters, press releases in these places, and you can show evidence of what you're doing. And this is an example of how Brexit-ready our organization is relating to the information that's within the organization and how we're handling it. So of course, I've done this many times, I'm sure you have as well. I've walked into a boardroom with something like this, and people immediately say, hey, excuse me, these red lines here, are they in my part of the organization? Tell me about them. And so it goes on. Very rarely am I asked about the greens, but the reds and the yellows become a focus of great attention. So this is from a risk management bit of software. and it's just RAG status, red, amber, green status dashboards. Okay, now let's run through the whole thing very quickly to summarize. Brexit readiness cycle, 11 activities, and we've run through those. So, in terms of this Brexit readiness for your organisation, I'm going to switch it to a different view because I need to do this a bit better and put some software behind it and things like this. But these are 11 little boxes here, which I'm going to use for illustration. When you do each of the activities, this bit of software, pretend, allows you to show the status. So underneath this is a spreadsheet. A couple of layers underneath it is this spreadsheet. And here are the 11 activities. This is white, not started. This says red, need urgent help. This one is yellow, started and in hand. That's green, done and evidence is available. And date shows the latest date of this line of progress. So here, review environment. This yellow says started by AB of business analysis team on January the 15th. But it is now the 30th of January. So he might be AB, but he's obviously not a busy bee enough to keep that activity going. More worrying is this, which says understand the business objectives. And the CEO commissioned us to come in and help because we're the consultancy, let's pretend, BCS Consultancy. And it says here, CEO is on holiday until February the 10th. So that's the reason for that rate one. Why on earth did he commission us? Must like spending money. Maybe it has lots of money. Keep in touch with this organization. And so on. This one, confirm responsibilities, says that as at the 30th of January, there are no job specs and the roles are unclear. Well, maybe that's an agile organization, but maybe it's one which isn't particularly capable of doing what it's intended to do. We need to flag that to the CEO when it comes back, of course, and so on. And so, what we would expect as a result of that spreadsheet up at the top level again is this. So this is a reflection of the statuses of those. And what I'm saying is that you can drill down into here, go to the spreadsheet, drill down again and find the actual evidence. Yeah.
Do you have any dependencies or links?
This is nothing. This is two-dimensional, but there will be as soon as I manage to persuade you to spend some evenings and weekends putting this together. Come and see me later. Okay, so that's on the 30th of Jan. Then, what we're aiming for is that by the end of July, question mark, here is the status, and everything is green, with the exception of number 10, apply the actions, where one or two of the actions are a little bit behind. But in general, they're on top of it, meaning they've been around the cycle once, and that implies that they will probably keep going with it. And so, hey presto, you've got an organisation that's heading towards Brexit readiness. Or, should we call it, that has a strategy that is operationally ready in a number of ways, because you can extend all this very easily in other directions, can't you? And in terms of GDPR, easily in terms of data and so on. Okay, so Brexit, how to do it? I've called this IT readiness for competitive advantage, which I hope you agree with. Subtitle is the pencil, the carrot, and the stick. Here's the pencil. The carrot is getting it in place so that you can say that your organization is getting ready. You can put some kind of message to your customers and your suppliers to that effect. And you can see if you get extra business from that. I would hope you do. Yeah? And here's an extra thing. Just imagine this with me. Firm A's possible future advertising or email footer is this. It's got a logo there. Oh, it's the BCS logo. Fancy that. And it says Firm A is getting IT ready with the BCS BrexIT readiness program. How about you? And there's the tick. Do you think that would be a suitable carrot for some organizations? No? Maybe? Yeah? What do you think? There is, of course, a stick as well. If not, then in 2 years' time, this is the doorway to, I don't know what, to business in China or something. And your firm, Firm A, is just here. And that's a queue of people trying to get in there. Yeah? What do you think might be the implications then in terms of costs, speed of processing, competitiveness, and business? That's it. But I would like to ask for your opinions. Preferably, I think, if I could give you some bits of paper, maybe you'd give me a comment in terms of what you think about this. Because here are some of the comments from my past presentations on this topic. It says BCS audience comments after earlier presentations. Interesting and thought-provoking. I didn't say any of these, promise. A good framework that deserves to be given a wider audience. There's a lot of uncertainty around BrexIT. BrexIT, this plan, provides both a structure and a way forward into the unknown. Somebody says, as important to SMEs as Y2K. I didn't. And somebody else said, as IT professionals, we can start work now. We don't need to wait for the government or any negotiations to be completed. I strongly suggest that we don't, and instead adopt BrexIT. What do you think?
I think it would have a lot more weight if you have some case studies or examples of potential work that we might do under the framework.
Yeah.
Like, for example, there's a large mobile phone company in the UK that might move to Luxembourg. There's no reason that's not work to prepare them for Brexit when they're moving out of Britain. But that's work as IT people we can do in our sleep.
Yeah.
It's moving a company.
Yeah. Is there something here that's radical or different or impossible for IT folks to take on? Is there something here that you shouldn't already be doing already?
It seems to me to be a huge unknown in our relationship with our former, current partners or competitors around Europe. The terms on which we may trade or not with our current and former partners in Europe, it's not yet known. And how that will work will very much guide how we have to behave in terms of extending ourselves or proofing ourselves for that marketplace.
Right.
Furthermore, if we hit WTO standards, then again there may be some changes that need to be made. Those could be more certain because those standards exist. So I think until Europe is it's clear how Europe is going to treat our exit, if at all, then it's hard to actually form a plan.
Right. So it's not a question of us waiting for the government to decide what to do. It's a question of us waiting for Europe to decide to do with our government.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Good. Does your firm have a good set of lawyers?
Why should it need those?
Well, to see which agreements might be effective. Government is currently processing thousands of contracts to see how they might be affected by Brexit. And lawyers are getting expensive, very expensive.
At the Global Expansion Summit, there was a lawyer that was going through 3 different scenarios about EU goods and movement of goods, and one of them was having a bonded warehouse, which is effectively part of the EU and the UK, and then goods could be distributed. Now, I mean, we can think in terms of scenarios and prepare for those, and outcomes.
Yeah, that's exactly where I am, totally.
Yeah.
Because I just think of this as, the really trivial version of it is if you're a software company and all of a sudden the Chancellor announces 3 months before the end of the tax year that there's a major change, which did happen of course, a major change in pensions, can't remember when that was, and all of a sudden they had to write all these changes and get the software out there when it was still discs, and which was nuts. And then all those people had to implement it, and it was just a disaster. I can't remember what the change was. I think it was a change in employers' national insurance or something weird, but that's a long time ago as well. But it's the same thing. If we wait, then we'll be left with weeks, months, and probably unrealistic deadlines because politicians and people tend not to worry about how we all have to implement things too much. I think they do worry, it's just that they maybe don't worry too much.
They know we can make it happen.
Yeah.
So, Jim?
Just one point. In your original model, there's a word missing, and I think the word is change, the management of change, business change, government change. And you need to get some sort of focus on the model that will enable people to identify the fact that we are going through a change process. And I think that needs to be brought in. And if you look at Brexit, you've got pre-Brexit, because we're not in the Brexit point, we're not Brexit point yet. We will then get to Brexit, and then we'll be post-Brexit. So throughout that, you've got pre-Brexit preparation, and then you have the transition. And then if you're in a business that has to change, you then have that transformation model as well. So that, for me, it's the management of change and understanding what needs to change and how you control and manage the change over that period of time.
Sure, change management, important. Yeah. Let me just introduce another variable, as it were. There's something else that's happening at the same time. GDPR. Oh my God, how are we going to cope with that? Well, it's obvious, really. We should ignore one of them. GDPR has fines associated with it, therefore we should clearly do that. And leave this. It's a perfectly valid risk management approach. It's the do-nothing risk management approach, if that's what you want to do. But I'm suggesting that we can do much better than that, and we are much better than that.
Darryl, I'm not at all convinced on the overall scheme. Not necessarily opposed to it, but let me say not convinced. But I do think there is scope for an authoritative document on starting with the key issues that are people, including skills, education, recognition of foreign qualifications, international standards, European standards, in theory shouldn't be affected, but people need to be told that. GDPR and data protection, data privacy generally, and what if there's European legislation that says European data's got to be in Europe? In the, what's it called, single digital market, mobile telephony, single currency market. Well, there's quite a lot of technical issues.
Absolutely. Let me add a little bit of insight.
A page on each of those would be a start.
Okay. I have a limitation because I have a risk consultancy called DSL. And there's one person in it, and that's me. That's the problem. But let me just tell you something about what's happening at the BCS level. I ran two BrexIT, what does it mean type events. And I was invited by BCS headquarters, to a super BrexIT event, which they ran in a very plush location in Manchester, just around the corner from the BBC. It was great. It must have cost thousands of pounds. I was very impressed, and also with the quality of the speakers there, who largely focused on life after Brexit. What could life after Brexit look like? And they were very good. They're what I'd call inspirational speakers. And I was inspired to hear that they, and most of the audiences, had actually travelled up from a place called London in order to be there. All their expenses, of course. So at that point, I hatched an idea that this is great. This is a talking shop. This is saying, well, the bottom line is, let's wait for the government to say what it wants to do. That was in October. That's when I thought, I think what we need is, how can we actually do something? How can we actually do something, especially if it uses a skill that we are good at, which is change management, project management, risk management, and all those other sort of things. Because this is what we not only can do well, it's what we hopefully are doing well. Yeah? So, how can we harness one to the other? And what I've just described to you for Brexit is an easy version of what is already happening for GDPR in the city and in other places. And in GDPR, let me tell you, the law profession is delighted because they're all getting well into this and being sucked up at increasing fees and so on. And this is going to be the next thing that comes along. So, risk management says, do nothing is perfectly acceptable, insure it away if you can, that's another acceptable risk approach, or you can do things at various levels. You can do things yourself, you can do things via your suppliers, you can do things via customers. There are 5 risk management approaches. They're all quite acceptable, but now is a good time to decide what your organization's approach is and what worries you. And if you're not worried, then that's fine. You're in the same position as my wife's school is, because they're not worried about her. And they don't know that we already went to Frankfurt to check out house prices. But she is one person out of how many EU residents are in the UK? A million? More? Yeah? Right. So her organisation isn't worried about it. They're waiting for the government, I guess, I'll make this up. They're waiting for the government to say what Brexit means. Then they will decide what to do about it. And then. By that time, skilled European people that I know will be long gone, because they have highly portable skills, and the bidding for their skills is just starting to go up. So as long as your organisation isn't depending on any of them, no problem. Do nothing is a good option. Yes?
So what are they supposed to do, as an example, your work, and going around asking people whether they're going to stay here or not? So, I understand you point out the risk, but what people don't know how they're going to approach, because we weren't ready in this. We just didn't put it, and in this scenario, and you want to approach, you want to start doing things, and you know what, you can't, because the compliance is going to change, process is going to change. There's a huge uncertainty, so it is a big risk. Anything that you do now, it might change in 2 months' time. So, of course, people don't know where to start. Because we are in a journey unknown until the certain elements is clarified within 2 years' time. So, it's people are risk true, but it's not really feasible at the moment. What are people going to do and implement it and take care of things?
And that's a perfectly valid answer. I've heard quite a lot during the last few months. It's been very interesting. But let me just tell you, there are enormous queues for British passports Yeah? Because people who do want to, and in fact one of my committee members in Northumberland said to me, I've got it. I said, you got what? Various possibilities of things she's got that I could think of, but the one she meant was that her permission to stay in the UK visa has just been granted. Okay? So she's done that. That was the cheaper option, because to apply for a British passport right now, I think it costs £1,500. I'm sure it didn't used to be that, but that's how much it costs. And my wife has got the 18-page form that you have to fill in order to be considered for that. Now, does that make her feel welcome? Make her feel that the last 35 years have been worthwhile? You tell me.
My wife's applying for an Irish passport.
Yeah. The Irish passport office is also inundated with applications. So what can you do when you can't do anything? People are people. There are lots of things you can do. Yeah? You can buy, well, I mean, let's take my example. We could buy, if we had the money, a holiday home somewhere in Germany, couldn't we? Yeah? If I was
you could now, but maybe post-Brexit you might not be able to.
Your wife would to.
Oh yes, no, that's right. But then there's the money factor.
No trouble to read out.
No.
Bit of loose change.
What I might be able to afford, let's say, 6 months ago, I probably can't afford now. Certainly will not be able to afford later. So, yeah, the choice is mine. I mean, when I say to the government, hey, what are you going to do? What are you going to say or do? Something that really upsets me is that but this is just a personal thing, is that the UK government does not, in my view, have the courage to say, if you are an EU citizen in the UK, we want you, we need you, you are safe. They haven't said that. And most people in the UK don't know that or realise what a tremendously devastating position that puts people who now feel unwanted. Okay? So.
Well, I hope you all go to Germany and they can stay in here or there.
Well, the danger is that once you start checking out possibilities, you're likely to find something which actually, that's pretty good actually.
It's the same thing, isn't it, as when people think their job's under threat, they start looking for new jobs, and all the best people then leave, even if it wasn't under threat.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
That's what happens.
And also, the thing is that you're working in one environment, working in an environment that you're producing something, you're giving something, and if you expect a politician that to tell the society or their voters that we want you because we need your skill set, they won't say that. Because a lot of people up there will, we don't want you. I want you to get out of my country. So would you really want to stay there still, that a lot of people up there, God knows what they can do in a slight opportunity they get they get. So,
Well, I guess London and the UK are different. London is a melting pot of about 150 different nationalities. It's one of the most international welcoming cities in the world, in my view. And I think a lot of this is a real shame because it's going to change opinions, and it's changing opinions already. And there are lots of other little stories I could share with you about what people are doing and thinking and so on. But there are companies that are looking at alternative locations, not just marketplaces, but locations. I don't know if Prince Charles is in Romania, anything to do with this, because he's on a goodwill mission, but he actually has 2 properties in Romania. And so, again, I don't know him, and I don't know his intention of it, but he's had those properties they're in Transylvania, which is the northern region in Romania. He's had those for quite a long time. And so on, you see. But, maybe it's not a bad time to check out things like I found. I was a PwC auditor. I used to be in charge of teams of auditors running around auditing other companies. And one of the companies I audited was IBM. And so I had to go with my team to a number of different locations in Europe. And I was really surprised when I found one which is called BRNO. Have you heard of that?
No.
Do you know? Yeah?
Maybe ammunition and guns.
They, I didn't know how to say it. I said, there's a letter missing here. Because I didn't know if it was a Barno or Bruno or Borno or it's not. You say Brno, it's the second city of the Czech Republic. And IBM have discovered a long time ago that it's got a huge and very intelligent student population who are including lots of very adept IT and engineering students. And they set up a facility there, which occupies, I don't know how many people, hundreds of people for IBM. So that's where I went to audit them. And I was really very struck by what a super place Brno is. I was there for 2 weeks, and since then I've been back 3 more times. It's a great place, but I'm just giving that as an example of once you start looking, it's surprising how many things you find. Yeah. Let's bring it back on theme. Or should we just wait for the government?
No, I think because you'll always be waiting. There's always be other questions.
The government is not full of IT-savvy people. The government isn't full of business-savvy people. That's become very obvious on a number of occasions. But the government is the government, so, perfectly acceptable. Let's wait for the government. Okay, that's it. If you would like to leave me some feedback, I'll need to get some bits of paper. Yeah, let me just see. And I would very much like your feedback, if you don't mind. Oh, there's loads. Can I ask you to share your page of this book? And how tear up the pages.
Do you want any particular form, Darryl, or just?
It's up to you. Yes. If it's not, or you're going to the way with the government, that's fine.
Good done. I've already passed on. Have you got your email address?
Yeah.
I don't like my email. That's all right.
I'm recommending this one. Do you have it link?
Yeah.
I have a link.
You can find Barnum's address under the committee members in Northampton.
Or alternatively just
Write it down.
gosh. Nobody needs pens or anything, does it? And incidentally, the BCS at a senior level is committed to doing something about BrexIT at a high level and influencing government and telling them about our position and things like this. That's really the reason why they support me in terms of doing these low-level hands-on things. Because one comment I got from a BCS director was, but Dalim, what you're showing is how to do it hands-on. I said, that's right. I said, okay, that's fine. So, I'm not quite sure what that means. And maybe I should remind them there's only one of me. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Anyway, I hope you found that interesting and thought-provoking. I guess the answer is there in terms of it's 10 to 8, which is at least half an hour longer than I intended to work. Yeah, well done. Okay, so, yeah, thank you. Of course you can. Don't wear it out, though.
I need it for your next presentation.
Well, I want it to last 5 years.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Very enjoyable. I should say, pass on the message. Thank you. Good. Good. Thank you.